So there's no other further questions, then I will start my little discussion about flow state and its relation with regards to what we do, with regards to irradiation. So what Jason was asking me about a little bit before. So essentially, flow state is that sense of fluidity between your body and your mind. So when you're totally absorbed and kind of immersed and having a deeper focus on something uh, beyond any point of distraction, that's what the flow state is. It's like when time slows down, your senses are heightened. It's often described in sports and in any activities as being in the zone. That's kind of what the flow state is. So, what does irradiation have to do with the flow state? So, when we talk about irradiation, a lot of what we do is very mindful movements. So, we pay attention to everything from, like you guys just experienced, from the foot, every joint up towards your neck, and then also deeper. So, the deeper level stuff would be the actual tension that you're creating in and around those joints. So that's how we are mindful, and that's how the mindfulness kind of integrates with the radiation. But if I kind of dial back on what mindfulness is, it's the quality of being present and being fully engaged with whatever you're doing in that specific moment. So that's kind of like, again, like I said, it's what we're doing during our radiation warm-ups and what should be continuing throughout our practices while we're moving. It's just being in the moment and really feeling what's going on with every kind of passing movement. So when we have this level of control and you pair that with, let's say, a mindset that is calm, you're clear, and you're content with what you're doing, it's much easier to attain that flow state. So what are the benefits of the flow state? When you're in it, you have a heavy sense of concentration, you have a sense of clarity, there's limited amounts of obstacles mentally for you. There's a lot of good feelings that flow through your body as well as happiness. So previously, I kind of just mentioned that it's easier to attain the flow state when you might be in irradiation. So why exactly might that be the case? Why can irradiation maybe elicit flow state a little bit easier? So I don't have the exact roadmap for it because for everyone it's different. Like the way that you get into the flow state is different. But if you try to align some of these conditions, so I have 4 conditions that might increase your chances of achieving flow state. So number 1 is to actually have the need to care about the task that you're doing on hand, right? So you need to care about what you're actually doing. If you love it, if you really enjoy that specific task or activity, it makes it easier. Number 2, whatever you're doing, so the activity, job, or task can't be too easy or it can't be too difficult. So you have to be kind of like right in between, right in the middle, sweet spot. Thirdly, the activity should be something that you're good at. So it's hard to achieve flow state when you're still a beginner at something because there's so many different things that you need to focus on that you can't just allow your body to do what it needs to do to get into its most optimal state. So you should be doing something that you're good at to get here. And fourthly, your mindset should be focused on the journey as opposed to the destination. So that's a really good point when we're talking about irradiation because we're focusing every piece along the journey, right? We know that the destination is going to be full of radiation. We know that we're going to be ramping up to 100%. We know that we're going to come back down to 70. We said that in the beginning of the workout. But the focus each and every part of the way is what's going on at the foot, right? What's going on at the knee? What's going on? So we always kind of ramp up along the journey, and our focus is on the journey. So kind of moving into where irradiation fits into the bigger picture of getting your body and your mind into the zone. If for me, like I like to create a ritual around the irradiation, because again, you might not be just irradiating and then all of a sudden like you're in a flow state. Like that's probably not what's going to happen. But if you use the irradiation as a ritual, then it might help you to achieve and get yourself into that, the precursors of being in the flow state. So I like to use an example of when I go in to do a squat. So whenever I do a rack squat, so a barbell squat, and I see the rack in front of me, right? I never just go right in and I just crank out my squats. I always look at it first. I look at the bar, I look at the rack, and I visualize what my set's going to look like, right? So I see myself doing it real quick. So it's not like I just stand there for the duration of what my actual set looks like, but I just run through it really quickly how I'm supposed to do it, what my set looks like, and then I approach the bar. And my approach is always the same, so it's very ritualistic. I take 4 steps into the bar. I place my hands, thumbs out from shoulder width, and then I pull myself under the bar. Once I'm there, I pull the bar down towards my traps, and then my feet are right underneath the bar, and I start my irradiation process from there, right? Again, it might not be like a very slow irradiation like we did today, but once I'm under the bar, I'm focusing on my feet, making sure that they're planted, coming up, working joint by joint, making sure that I'm set up along the way. So that is my ritual for the squat, and it allows me to take out any of the distractions, right? It allows me to take out all distractions, because the last thing I want to do when I have a couple 100 pounds over my back is to have my mind wander, and there's bad things that can happen when that happens. So no thank you to that. I want to make sure that the ritual every time gets my mind in the right position and the right place, so that while I'm doing the movement, there's no outside noise that's coming in. So do I get a flow state every time I do a squat? No. Actually, like I don't think I've ever gotten a flow state when I'm doing a squat, but that's just an example of like what I would do to maybe get myself ready as close as I can to being in the flow state, so that I can take advantage of all the other things, the mental and the physical things that come with ramping up to the flow state, right? But where I have experienced the flow state, yep. Do you have something? Yep. Yeah. So essentially, if I'm doing like a 70, then if my target is 70%, then it's kind of like my workout intensity for that day, right? So you can think of irradiation very similar to the level of intensity you want to put into a workout. So it's like the RPE stuff as well. So if I'm aiming for 70, like this workout today was aimed to be a moderate to high intensity, but it's not like an all-out max like 80, 90, 100% workout. So yeah, like if I'm at that 70%, then most things that I do in that workout is going to be around there. Obviously, it's like it's a very general answer, because if I'm working at 70, let's say for one thing, but I want to take a more active rest, yeah, then obviously I'm coming back down. Maybe I'll dial down to like a 30% if I'm doing more accessory pieces. But if the main goal for that workout is 70, then that's kind of my benchmark, and that's where I'm aiming for most of my primary movements. Yep, cool. Yeah, so kind of going back to where I've actually experienced flow state, was probably where I've experienced the most was during my dragon boat days. So when I raced competitively for the dragon boat team back in university, this is kind of like the ritual leading up to the actual race itself. Yes, Adam, you know. So during race day, I always had a routine or ritual similar to the squats. I would hype myself up and then get really quiet to channel the energy right before the race. So if anyone kind of knows me and like has seen me through the competition, they know that I am like pretty loose throughout. But then like when moments leading up to it, like once we're under the tent leading up to the race, I got really quiet. I don't like anyone talking to me, and I'm just like kind of straight face. I just look straight ahead, and I'm visualizing what's happening next. So every kind of step of the way, I know what's going to happen. Right up to the moment, the very last, the famous last words of "ready, ready," that Adam would shout in my ear and in all of our ears. Right up until that moment, my mind would go into a state of calmness, clarity, and content with the silence that's right before a starting line. So if anyone's been through any type of racing, whether they're sprinters, at the starting line, there's always that moment of silence. You know that moment, and then you're just waiting. You're just waiting for the gun to go. You're waiting for the horn to fire. And then once that horn fires or the gun goes, then you are in your flow state. So for me, everything leading up to that moment, up until the horn sounds, was my prep work. And most often than not, especially when we were in the championship races, when we started paddling, like you don't really think too much. You just do it. But those were some of the, like that 1 minute race or that 30-second race for the sprints was probably, it felt longer than it was, and it felt a lot clearer than any of my other practices I've ever been. Like I knew exactly where I was in space. I could see the water droplets kind of flowing out from the paddle as I entered the water. It was like that's the type of flow state that you hear about. But I've only really experienced it there. I've had it a few times while playing hockey during playoff games, but that's pretty much it. Recently, I've experienced it maybe once while doing animal flow when I really let my body kind of take over. I haven't developed the exact kind of ritual and routine to ramp myself up into that for animal flow, the practice that I'll be going through on Monday. But that's kind of the type of style of stuff that you can think about when you're gearing yourself up to try to hit the flow state. So I think that irradiation is a great tool to help you achieve the flow state, not necessarily like using it as your flow state. But I'm sure for people like Olympic lifters, power lifters, anyone who uses a lot of tension while they're doing their performing, I'm sure that irradiation is a part of their flow state. I'm sure when they're doing those lifts, they're feeling everything, all that tension building up, and flowing through their bodies. So that would be a prime example of when irradiation and flow state are kind of achieved in unison and simultaneously. So that's my little talk about flow state and how kind of what we do with irradiation. For me, I use it as a ritual, but other people, they can possibly use it to actually achieve it. So thank you for listening to my chat. If you have any other questions about this or anything else, let me know. You can DM me, email me, or the rest of the team. You can also check out our socials, so either Instagram, Facebook. You can join our Facebook group. And then through there, we have some exclusive stuff. So we'll be releasing this chat, so this discussion, and many more things on there as well. So yeah, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week.